Thank you very much. Commensability or interchangeability or fungibility is very interesting. And I know you were the researcher before on CDM, so I'm happy to hear your comment. But another issue to be the type of project, because certain type of project is not okay under Kyoto mechanism. And so what do you think that issue, and what would be the acceptance of international society on the type of project?
Well, again, this is where you reach the limits of convertibility, right? Because it is clear that currently all project types that are eligible for the CDM or JI can be used by any country and can be traded from one country to another. And that has a huge advantage. For example, in the very situation in which Japan is right now, that it has actually, if I understand correctly, it has actually purchased more offsets than it needs. Well, in that case, Japan might want to sell some of those offsets that it has has over-purchased. And the reason why Japan might be able to sell those offsets is because those offsets have a value for every single country that participates in the Kyoto Protocol. If you have a situation in which there is a project type that is eligible only to one bilateral market, then the only two countries that can participate in that market are the two countries that are buying and selling from each other. And so you lose the convertibility and the fungibility and the economic maximization and optimization that comes with a broad-based market. So while you may think that you're winning, in the end, it might actually constrain your flexibility.
And do you think international society will accept that some country use that offset or credit for the compliance of target?
You know, that's certainly for countries to decide.
It's up to parties, so.
Yeah, it's up to parties to decide that. It would require pretty sophisticated guidance to ensure that a target that is taken at the international level can be complied with in a sheerly bilateral market. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but I think it's very complicated to do that, and it's probably unnecessarily complicates the life of those countries. It would be possible, but not easy to do. And I don't know if there would be political will to do it either. Don't know.
Thank you very much. Life is very complicated. Last question, because we have to open the floor. What is your priority for Durban, and what is your dream?
My priority for Durban is first to ensure that the Secretariat and all governments do all of the homework that we have agreed to do. And I went through some of the 5 important parts of that homework. Secondly, priority for Durban is to encourage governments to give serious consideration to both how are they going to increase their ambition and in what legal framework do they want to continue to operate with each other. And my dream for Durban and beyond is that all countries, underscore all countries, would not only meet what science tells us they have to do by the year 2020, 2030, and 2050, that they would not only meet those targets, but that they would actually beat those targets because they have realized that it is important for their own economic growth and for the well-being of their societies.
Thank you very much. はい。では、すいません。
I'm sorry, but now we'd like to open the session to the floor, receive questions or comments from the floor. I do think that we can extend the session a bit. So we would like to entertain as many questions as possible. So please try to limit yourselves to a question. And if you have to make a comment, please try to be as brief as possible. And if possible, please identify yourself and before asking your question.
Rishima, it's not a question, but I'm a lawyer. So you are talking about the legally binding, but law of international law is quite different from the domestic law. So even if you are talking about the legally binding, but the international law legally binding, as Ms. Figueres said that. As Canada showed, even if they once said that we ratified the Kyoto Protocol, we cannot do it, so forget about that. So long as there is no sanction, you cannot put the Canada into jail. So it's not the legally binding. If it were the domestic law, you can put the law broke person, the person who broke the law, you can put the person into in the jail. So in that sense, don't tell them legally binding too much. So in that sense, for example, China. They are under the Kyoto Protocol. They are bound by the Kyoto Protocol. But thanks to the differentiated responsibility, they have practically, I'm not saying nothing. There are very few to be observed to observe the legal items. China should observe. So in that sense, even though you are talking about the legally binding, they are quite different from the national law. So from the very beginning, 1997, I have observed whole process of negotiation. But these days, particularly EU, you have too much stick to the legally binding negotiation. So other people, like United States, are very much careful about that because of a domestic political situation. So for the future, the coming negotiation, I rather recommend EU not too much stick to, that's okay to talk about the legally binding, but not too much stick to the legally binding items, but rather to talk about how we can make a commitment which will contribute to a degree constraint. Japan, I'm a little bit afraid by the Asuka-san's comment. Japan might be the negative to the future negotiation. But no, Japan is too much positive in a sense. So we are very much serious how to reduce our reduction, not only our Japan's reduction, but also global reduction. So in that sense, Japan will cooperate with other nations, including United States, EU, and China, and India. But if we too much stick to legally binding the convention or whatever, Kyoto Protocol, we will fail. As a lawyer, I can guarantee you. So including a legal mechanism, we seriously negotiate how we can make agreement which substantially reach to the future reduction, substantive, meaningful reduction, which include the China and the United States. 1990 and 1997, China did not emit not so much CO2, India as well. And EU at that time, 15 countries. Now you have 27 countries. Japan at that time emitted 5%, now less than 4%. So situation has been changed. But now, still, you are talking and same thing. So I ask you or solicit you, change your way of negotiation. Of course, I appreciate your willingness to reach that target, but the way of negotiation, that is your role. And also, I appreciate Ms. Figueres' willingness and effort, but please understand our situation. And when I heard your comment, you are rather aggressive to us. Of course, you want to persuade us, but if you too much criticize us, some of our audience may say that the UNFCCC Secretariat may be our enemy, not our friend. So please understand us. We are serious for the future. Thank you very much.
I think we are old friends. So.
Yes, and I certainly, if there's anything that I said that you thought I meant that you weren't serious, I certainly did not intend that at all. I fully understand that Japan is serious. That's why I'm here. Otherwise, I wouldn't have come around the world to talk to Japan and to be here for a whole week. I'm here because I know that there is serious Japanese commitment. Otherwise, I wouldn't bother to come. Having said that, I think there is still a lot of possibilities that can be explored by Japan that haven't been explored in the past. And my visit to Japan has the intent of inviting, with all due respect, inviting Japanese government, civil society, business, to explore what other options are there for Japanese participation that haven't been considered, because it is not just Japan. It is every single country in the world that has to make a much more ambitious commitment. It's not just Japan. As I have said, every single country needs to increase its ambition. So this is not a conversation that I'm having only with Japan. This is a conversation that I'm having with every single country in the world.